for plaintiff's motion to modify custody and parenting time and support. Ms. with her attorney, Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Cole is present in the courtroom. Mr. Cole, you're here today without an attorney. Are you prepared to proceed today without an attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead, why don't you tell the court what you're asking for today?
Yes, Your Honor, originally, so the current order really only gives parenting time as the parties agree, which obviously is much more beneficial for the person who has primary custody of the parent than the other parent. Courts, I know, like specific parenting time schedules. They were sharing kind of by agreement parenting time, but there has been some recent events that caused great concern with the children and with the mother. As some history, I think the father would probably admit that he's had some at least past history with meth usage and so on. Certainly during the relationship with Miss Braley, that was happening, and that when that would happen, when he was using, it would actually become his personality would, change a lot, become much more aggressive, threatening, and so on. Recently, their child had reported that there was an incident at the house where he had threatened his girlfriend to kill her and put a knife up to her. And so mom's big concern was just, is dad using again? And that's really her own concern, because when he's not using, he's great, he's amazing. She wants to have a relationship between him and the child. But if he is using, it just changes his behavior completely. Now, since then, they've actually been things have calmed down a little bit, and he's been getting every other weekend, and mom really likes that, as long as he's not using. So whereas we originally filed this motion saying, hey, because it was shortly after that last incident, and the son was traumatized, he was having nightmares and had to sleep with mom for a while. We'd asked basically no parenting time, but then since then, it stabilized, and he's been doing every other weekend. So mom's position is actually she would really like him to have a schedule, but we would like either a substance abuse evaluation, or at the very least a hair follicle test that can go back 30 days or whatever. And as long as that either one of those is clean, then she would like to actually give him specific scheduled parenting time of every other weekend and so on. So that would actually benefit him, benefit the child. Her big concern is just, we just want to know that he's not using, and we can be comfortable and confident that that's happening, and would like some verification of that prior to starting changing the order, or where he actually has an enforceable order of every other weekend, as opposed to as the parties agree. Veronica, is that accurate as to how I stated
Yeah.
things? Okay. So with that, Your Honor, that's I guess what we're asking is either a substance abuse evaluation and or a hair follicle exam. As long as that goes clean, then the order will change automatically to a very specific schedule, which will certainly benefit dad, and he'll have something enforceable rather than just whenever mom agrees or doesn't agree.
All right. Mr. Cole, do you think you understand what they're asking for?
What's the substance?
A substance abuse evaluation is an evaluation where you'd go talk to an evaluator, you'd fill out some questionnaires, and they would talk to you about your use. And then they would give a recommendation as to if they think you have a substance abuse problem or not. In the alternative, or in addition, they're asking for a hair follicle test, which would test back probably about 60 days to see if you've been using and what substances you would be positive for.
My only problem is transportation at this time, Your Honor. I have no transportation, but I did. I don't know if it matters. I know it's not an anger management or anything like that from what the paperwork said, but I did try to get hold of a 1016 just to see what I could do from there. But it's just transportation is the issue.
So you live in Morley, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I mean, we could, one thing I could recommend, I mean, it could be, we could put it in there. I mean, if the substance abuse, I'm sure that's probably expensive as well. I think that they can usually do those virtually, but even if he just committed to in the order that says, hey, whenever, well, we'll keep it as the parties agree right now. But if at any time you get a substance abuse evaluation, or not a substance abuse, but a hair follicle exam, and you have the results sent directly to Veronica or to me, so that we can just confirm, they weren't modified in Adobe PDF or something. And as long as they're clean, then at that point he would then convert to every other weekend, and without having to file any motion. And then obviously if she didn't give him the child for every other weekend, he would have an enforceable order, because he could show that he did provide a clean substance abuse, or I keep saying that, clean hair follicle test. That would be fine too. And then that way, otherwise, if he can't do that for a while, he doesn't really have to drive anywhere far for that. He just has to find some place local that will do those. There is a cost involved in that. I do believe, and it's not extremely cheap for a hair follicle one. Might be $150 or something. But I guess it would be up to him to decide whenever he wants to take that, can pay for it, can get it done, and then his parenting time would increase without motion. I think that could resolve it as well, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Cole, response?
If I may, will I not see my son until I?
No, so what he's saying is that right now, you guys could leave it the way it is as the parties agree on, which right now she's been giving you every other weekend.
Bless her.
Once you did a hair follicle test,
Right.
So the way it is right now, let's say she keeps giving you every other weekend, but she has then some concerns. She could withhold him from you and not face any contempt, right? There's no order that says she's in violation because it's as you agree. She's saying, or he's saying, that once we leave it that way, once the order would say that once you did a hair follicle and it showed that you were clean, you would then go to every other weekend scheduled. And then she would have to give them to you every other weekend unless she came to court and asked for it to change.
Right.
Can you live with, now these are your choices. You don't have to agree to anything today. We could set it for a trial. We could come back, you could have a trial. You could agree to that. You could offer something different. So what's your response to that?
I mean, she's a great mother. I know she's only wanting what's best for her son. And I don't have the money right now to buy a hair follicle test. I don't.
Okay, and so she's saying that's okay. She'll continue to go as every other, or as you agree. And when you get the money to do the hair follicle, you can do the hair follicle, and then it would go to that schedule.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you agree to that?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Do you want some time to talk to an attorney or come back for a trial? All right.
I can't afford an attorney.
All right.
Definitely.
All right. Do you want some time and have come back and set it for a trial so you can give testimony, or you want to agree to that today?
I'll agree to it, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Whitehead, you'll do the order?
Yes, Your Honor. I will. Can I just, I guess, Wadir, both?
Sure.
Okay. And did you hear the agreement that Mr. Cole was willing to make, that you'll keep the order as agreed by the parties, but if he pays for and produces a clean hair follicle test at any time in the future, once that's done, then the order will change to he'll have a scheduled every other weekend, let's say Friday 6 p.m. till Sunday 6 p.m., and that will be enforceable at that time. Did you hear that agreement?
Yes.
And do you believe that's in the best interest of the child?
Yes.
And do you understand you could have gone further in this case and been scheduled a trial, and the result might have been worse, the same, or better than this one? Do you understand that?
Yes.
And with that information, would you still like the court to enter this agreement today as an order once I prepare it?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like to ask Mr. Cole some questions too.
Sure, you may go ahead, sir.
Okay. And did you hear, the agreement that you made as far as that order will stay as it is now. However, you have the opportunity to actually get specific scheduled parenting time every other weekend that's enforceable by the court order if you would provide at any time. It could be in 6 months, it could be next month, it could be next year. But if you provide a clean hair follicle exam or test, that you will then have automatic scheduled parenting time every other weekend. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And you understand you could have asked to proceed towards a trial and ended up with a result that was better, the same, or worse than this agreement?
Yes, sir.
And with that knowledge, would you still like the court, once I prepare the order and the court signs it, to enter this as an order?
Yes, sir.
And do you believe it's in the best interest of your child?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. So the court will enter the order. What will happen next is he'll do an order, probably what's called on a 7-day. So you'll get an order in the mail. As long as it looks like what you agreed to, you don't have to do anything. After 7 days passes, I'll sign it and it will enter. If he sends you an order that says something different than you think you agreed to, then you would have to do something, object to it, okay? And then once you do the hair follicle, you'll send it to Miss Braley and or Mr. Whitehead, whichever is you can do easiest. You can also probably have the person that does the hair follicle send it right to them if you have an email or a fax number, okay? Anything else for the record?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good luck to you. We're adjourned. Time scheduled for defendant's objection to the plaintiff's ex parte and a scheduling conference, and also a motion to terminate the personal protection order. Mr. Emelander is present in person in the courtroom with his client, the plaintiff petitioner. Mr. Shepard is present via Zoom with his client, Mr. Lyon. Mr. Shepard or Mr. Emelander, have you guys had any chance to discuss this matter and any possible resolution?
We discussed it briefly. I don't think we have a resolution at this point. What we're asking the court to do is keep in place both the ex parte on the personal protection order pending an evidentiary hearing, and also keep the current order in place with respect to the suspension of defendant father's parenting time, which this court entered back on May 3rd. Also, what we're requesting the court to do is a hair follicle urine witness test. We set forth significant factual allegations which have been verified that the father has serious drug issues going on, methamphetamine use, recent methamphetamine use, and continued methamphetamine use based on recent information my client has received, to the point where he was destroying property around the house, thinking that people are out to get him, thinking that the FBI was watching him, destroying the kids' clothing. He accused my client of cheating on him based on the child's underwear laying on the floor. He's chasing people up and down the road, gets in his car. He hangs out at the drug dealer's house over in Grant, still is hanging over there. The drug dealer's house over in White Cloud still is going over there at that house. So, and this drug use is causing him to be extremely paranoid, expressing bizarre behavior, assaultive and abusive behavior, both to my client and my client's children. So on top of the hair follicle and urine witness test, we'd ask that a psychological evaluation be ordered. My client will cover half of that cost. She'll also cover the cost of the hair follicle and urine witness test, with a condition that she would be reimbursed if he tests positive for anything illegally. We'd ask that Dr. Weeks over at Midwest Psychology conduct that evaluation. And then once we have all that information, we can move forward with scheduling an evidentiary hearing to see where we're at with this case. In the meantime, I think this case is appropriate for a professional supervisor. We'd ask that Mindy Mensch or another professional supervisor in the area perform that service. There was an occasion where my client was on one isolated time allowed the defendant father's mother do the parenting time, but that fell apart real quick. Basically, her name is Roxanne, and she's been using the kids and using my client to violate the PPO, to get into, talking to Letitia about issues that have nothing to do with, the custody arrangement, and basically accusing her of all the wrongdoing in this case, and, bringing that to the kids. So And also, you know, it's our position that she's enabling this behavior. Roxanne is enabling this behavior. That's where she's currently letting her son live, and he's still spinning out of control. Recently, her brother was his brother was over there at Roxanne's house where he's currently living, and threatened to kick him out of the house because he was completely acting bizarre. So this case is significant enough to warrant the psychological evaluation, the drug test, and to keep in place a professional supervisor until we can get this fleshed out more at evidentiary. And so that's what we're asking the court to do.
Response, Mr. Shepherd.
Yeah, thanks, Judge. So first off, Mr. Emliner is correct. We have nowhere near enough time to get into this case at this time. Obviously, my objection and my request to dismiss the personal protection order speaks for itself. So I think what we should endeavor to do is try to create an environment where we can have some parenting time and make sure that we are progressing, and we're happy to get to that evidentiary hearing whenever the court can schedule. What I would say in terms of the additional requests are, first and foremost, my client does not want to do supervised parenting time. However, I've indicated to him that based on the allegations and not having the time to disprove them today, or for Mr. Emliner to have to prove them, we'll accept the supervised parenting time in whatever capacity the court can provide that. The reality is that Ms. Lyon, children's paternal grandmother, is a perfectly appropriate supervisor. She's very familiar with these children, and she would tell you that she's had a long history of providing care for them when the parties were together. Now, of course, when the parties aren't together, she's the bad guy. So parenting time, if the court requires that it be supervised, we'll agree to it at this point. But Miss Roxanne Lyon is a wonderful person to do that. I don't believe she has any criminal or CPS history and has a close relationship with the kids, and they would be comfortable there, and she would have the ability to do that. The court wants, I know the court's position is on drug tests. Here's what it is. Party requesting it has to put the money up, and if they're dirty, there's reimbursement both ways. If the court orders that, we'll follow that. With regard to a psychological evaluation, Judge, we're nowhere near that. First off, my client couldn't begin to afford that. Secondly, there is no call for that. These are mere allegations. If at the evidentiary hearing, the court's convinced that there's some sort of issue in that regard, then maybe we could revisit that. But just off the cuff, based on pleadings and Mr. Emliner's assertions here this morning, there's no need for a psychological evaluation, Judge. I think the court can ferret out what it needs to at the time of the evidentiary hearing, but then would obviously further delay that anyway. So we would object to that request. There's no basis for it. There's these allegations of wild behavior, but they're nothing more than that. And so if there's some factual substantiations to that over the course of the hearing, well, then at that point, maybe the court would do that. With regard to the PPO, Judge, we would just ask that maybe both hearings be same time for efficiency, so we're not doing it twice. But it is time for Mr. Lyon to have some sustained parenting time. It's been a little bit, and we shouldn't have any further delay. We're willing to do the supervision. We believe Ms. Lyon is appropriate, and that's what we would ask the court to do today. I realize we have very limited time to do that, but Ms. Lyon is available, Judge, if you want to ask her a few questions. I think she's with Brad this morning.
Mr. Lyon, I can't see you. Can you move the phone so that I can see you?
I was trying, ma'am.
Your video's on. I just need you to point.
I was thinking you was like pointing at the light or something. So.
I'd like to see your face, please.
It was the wrong one. All right. So you want?
Perfect. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
Mr. Emlander, any response to what Mr. Shepherd has indicated?
My client's adamantly opposed of permitting Roxanne Lyon to be the supervisor at this point. I think it's completely inappropriate. She is not a fit person to provide those services at this point. She's protecting the kid. She's enabling the child. I guess apparently within the last couple of days, they had a in-home drug test that took place at the house. He tested positive for cocaine, tested positive for THC, opioids, and that's all happening within her house. So she's aware that he's still on drugs. The drug use is occurring in her house. we'd ask that it be a professional supervisor. I think that the factual allegations, which are verified, warrant that in this case, especially if he's continuing down the path of this drug use, which has been set forth by a recent in-home drug test over at that residence, still acting in bizarre behavior. He's reaching out to one of the party's kids, getting into mom's phone to figure out if mom is seeing another person in the relationship, still making crazy accusations. He thought that there was a tracking device inside of the gas stove inside of the party's residence. He tore that thing completely apart looking for that tracking device.
The computer, he took the internet box. It was all bugged.
So he unscrewed all the light bulbs out of the house. So, I mean, this isn't a recreational type of situation where he's getting high once in a while. You know, this is a case where he's down the path of no return unless he gets the help that he needs. And it's causing him to act in this bizarre behavior. Still believes that people are out there to get him and stalking him. There's resources in this community to address situations exactly like this. And that's Mindy Minch. Hope and Healing. There's at least two different entities that can provide this service until we can get an evidentiary hearing. And plus, we don't even have the drug test results yet. You know, we'd ask that take place in 48 hours. And if that comes back dirty, which very, very great likelihood that's going to come back dirty, that no parenting time be awarded due to this continued use of drug abuse. But as a last resort alternative, if the court is unwilling to do the professional supervisor, which I think this court mandates, with my client's mother would serve as a supervisor, and they could do that in a public setting. The weather's nice outside. They can go, they live right here in White Cloud, and they go to the mill pond, at least give them a couple hours here and there until we can get an evidentiary hearing. But absolutely not to Roxanne. Absolutely not.
Mr. Lyon, where are you going?
Brad,
I was gonna grab my drink.
you can't grab a drink when you're doing this, honey. You have to stay here. It's like being
We're having a court hearing about your children. I'm wondering why you would leave to go get a drink.
Because I was thirsty. I'm sorry.
Okay. Mr. Shepherd responds.
Sure, Judge. Look, again, it's like the spaghetti theory. It's when you throw a bucket of spaghetti on the wall, it looks terrible. You come back in 15 minutes, and how much of it actually sticks to the wall? I understand. We're telling the court to appease these allegations, and which is what they are and nothing more. We're fine with the supervised parenting time right now. We're willing to take the drug test. Okay. I think this again, the psychological evaluation is a fishing expedition and nothing more. And Ms. Lyon, who's here, if the court would like to ask her a couple of questions, is a perfectly appropriate person, and has asked her if she's ever been alone with the kids throughout the time the parties were together, or how many times that mom's allowed her to provide care. Ask her those things. I've asked her those things, and she'd be just fine in the meantime. But Judge, I don't want to have a situation where we're reacting to I've heard the word bizarre. Look, I can't get into defending those things today with the time frame we have, and it's going to take a while. But I appreciate the nature of the allegations, so I want to be fair to those, but also fair to my client. And again, Ms. Lyon would be appropriate if we're talking about a couple of hours or whatever the court would like to do. I think she's appropriate for overnight visitation because she lives with Brad. And by the way, if he was doing drugs in her presence, I don't think she would allow that. And if we need to put those things in order to make mom feel more comfortable, I'm okay with that too. This is the kind of case that you can make everyone comfortable by having an order that's pretty strict, and we'll live by that, provided the tenants are mutual, Judge. But that's my response for this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Court's looking at an evidentiary hearing on July 14. Does that work for anybody? Do you have your calendar?
I don't have my calendar, but that date sounds like it's open.
All right. In the morning.
Okay. Like 9 to noon, Judge?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll be the evidentiary hearing on TPO and the temporary.
Okay.
9 to noon. That'll be in person. You have to be in the courtroom. Court's going to fill out the scheduling order. I'm going to set this for a status in 90 days. So I'm looking at September 7th.
Okay.
That'll be a Zoom hearing.
And that'll be Zoom, and and if you guys have issues with these when you get back to the office, no, I'm lying. It's September 6th. It's a Wednesday. If you have issues with that, just get a hold of Miss Nicole and she'll try to move that around. 9 a.m. That'll be by Zoom, just a status, see where we're at, and then I'll get you on the trial docket at that point if you think we need it. In the meantime, court is going to order the hair follicle test with the standard provisions that Ms. Stout will pay for it, provided if it's positive, Mr. Lyon will reimburse her for that. That hair follicle will be done within the next 48 hours. Not going to order the psych eval at this point. I'm going to reserve that after I hear testimony at the temporary hearing and after we receive the evidence from the hair follicle. We may know more about what is leading to this alleged behavior. The court is going to order supervised parenting time. How have you been doing it now, supervised?
So on the 13th, I did let them go to.
So you don't have a schedule that you've been.
No,
All right.
but it was pretty much going to be every other weekend. They were supposed to go, not this past weekend, but the weekend before, to his niece's graduation party. But Roxanne was not getting back to me on pickup and drop off times. I had been messaging her all week trying to figure out times. And then at the last minute, she was like, whatever you want to do, which gave me the inclination. And then I'm not saying for sure, but that he's not.
Sure. The court's going to order that it occur 2 days a week through either Mindy Minch or the Center for Hope and Healing or any other agreed upon third party. If you guys can agree on one of the moms and or someone else when there's a special event, I'm going to let you guys do that. In the alternative, you can use these two private companies here in White Cloud or any other third party that you can agree on. The parties will split the costs of that supervised parenting time. And the supervisor will have the ability to stop the visits if they reasonably believe he is under the influence. So I'm not going to say that he won't get his visits after the hair follicle, because we all know the hair follicle goes back a while, but I will give that supervisor the ability to stop that parenting time. And because it's in a public place at a public facility, I feel okay with that. Mr. Emelander, you'll do the order?
Yeah, and my client will also pay for a urine witness test as well, so we'll include that as well.
All right.
And we'll just use Accurate Screen over here in White Cloud, and that would be within 40 hours of today's date.
So Mr. Lyon, you'll be able to go right to Accurate Screen. She'll probably pay that when she leaves today, is typically what people do. You'll be able to go right to Accurate Screen in White Cloud. It's across from Wesco. You may want to call, but she's typically open operating hours, and then she'll be able to do your drug test. You can talk to Mr. Shepard about it. Right. Anything else for the record today?
In the chance that
I'm sorry, Hal, go ahead.
Can I speak?
In the chance that he doesn't complete that drug testing order within 48 hours, how would that affect parenting time?
If he doesn't complete the drug test, his parenting time will be suspended completely until he appears for that temporary hearing in July. Mr. Shepard?
Yes, my question, Judge, was the drug testing order is mutual, correct?
Sure.
All right. That's all I had for this morning.
Mr.
Can I ask a
Emelander,
question?
not really, but you can. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just, in response to Tisha's comment, I had also been trying to get a hold of her and had not been getting responses. And my comment was, she said that she may have to work. And I just told her whatever worked for her to let me know as far as when to pick up or what I needed to do. So I'm sure that was quite a miscommunication as
Sure.
to what was going on. Not that I was still going to come and get them, but I needed to know what she wanted me to do because this was something she was allowing. So it was not meant that I was just blowing it off.
I appreciate that. I have no doubt that you would love to supervise, and I'm not saying that you are a danger to. The reason I'm not picking you as a supervisor is because it's a short period of time between now and the temporary order. This actually is to the benefit of everyone because it's an independent third party that can actually tell me what's happening at this parenting time versus everybody's skewed version. So a lot of times I'll send dads to these supervised parenting times and I get a whole other story. They're a great dad. They're bonded to their children. Everything went well. So it's a way for me to get a third eye on what is actually happening, and to just protect all of the parties until we can get to that temporary hearing. So thank you, Grandma. I appreciate you being here today. I'll see you guys back here in July.
Thank
We're
you.
adjourned.
That I'll give you a call here in a little bit.